Mid-1945, outside Munich, Germany, Lieutenant David Chen's unit received orders to search an industrial district for hidden munitions. Most buildings were bombed shells, but one massive warehouse stood intact, doors padlocked from outside. "That's deliberate," Corporal Williams observed. "Someone locked this from outside and walked away. Could be dangerous," Private Jackson added. "Chemical weapons, maybe, or booby traps." David studied the building. 3 stories tall, industrial construction, windows painted black. No battle damage, deliberately concealed. "Cut the lock, carefully." Williams used bolt cutters. The heavy padlock fell. The doors opened with a metallic groan, revealing complete darkness. Flashlights, weapons ready. Could be anything inside. They entered slowly, beams cutting through blackness. The warehouse was enormous, maybe 15,000 square feet, and filling every inch, thousands upon thousands of large burlap sacks, stacked floor to ceiling. "What the hell?" Williams whispered. The sacks were industrial-sized, roughly wrapped, different sizes and conditions. Some stacks reached 20 feet high. Others were carefully organized in rows. The sheer quantity was overwhelming. "Supply cache," Jackson suggested. "Food, medical equipment." "Wrong type of sacks for that," David replied. "These are shipping sacks, for transporting bulk materials. Could be weapons components, artillery shells maybe." David approached the nearest sack cautiously. It was heavy, maybe 80 pounds, and something inside shifted when he touched it. Not metallic, not liquid, something solid but irregular. "Should we open one?" Williams asked. "Not yet. Could be chemical weapons, could be anything." David's instinct screamed warning. "We document first, photograph, count, then we call specialists." "Specialists for what? We don't even know what this is." "Exactly, which means we proceed carefully." They spent an hour documenting, counting stacks, photographing from multiple angles, estimating quantity. The numbers were staggering. "I count at least 8,000 sacks," Williams reported. "Maybe more. Some areas are stacked too high to see clearly." "Why would anyone hide this?" Jackson wondered aloud. "If it's supplies, why lock them away? If it's weapons, why wrap them like cargo? And why paint the windows black?" David added. "Someone didn't want anyone seeing inside, didn't want anyone knowing this was here." The mystery deepened with every observation. The sacks weren't uniform. Some were carefully wrapped in multiple layers, others hastily tied. Some had markings in German that David couldn't read. Others had numbers, possibly inventory codes. "Lieutenant, look at this." Williams pointed to one stack. "These sacks have dates written on them. 1939, 1940, 1941, like someone was organizing by year." Organizing what, though? No one had answers. David radioed command. "We found a large warehouse, contents unknown, thousands of wrapped packages. Requesting specialist team before we proceed." The radio crackled. "Nature of materials." "Unknown, sir. Could be dangerous, could be valuable, could be nothing, but the quantity and the way it's hidden suggests significance." "Hold position. Specialists en route. ETA 4 hours. Do not open packages until they arrive." 4 hours of waiting. 4 hours of staring at mysterious sacks. 4 hours of speculation. "I think it's looted supplies," Jackson said. "Nazis stealing from conquered territories, hiding it for later." "Could be art," Williams suggested. "Rich Nazis looting museums." "Or documents," another soldier offered. "Government records, intelligence materials." David said nothing. His gut told him this was important, critical, but he couldn't explain why. The mystery sat there in burlap wrapping, waiting. Whatever secret these sacks held, it had been important enough to hide, significant enough to protect, valuable enough to lock away. Tomorrow, they'd begin finding answers. Tonight, the mystery remained. And David couldn't shake the feeling that opening these sacks would change everything. He just didn't know how. Not yet. The specialists arrived at dawn. A team of 4 men led by Captain Robert Morrison, an intelligence officer specializing in German military operations. "Show me what you found," Morrison said curtly. David led him through the warehouse. Morrison's expression remained neutral, but his eyes darted constantly, assessing, calculating. "Have you opened any?" "No, sir." "Waiting for clearance." "Good. This could be anything." Morrison approached a sack, examined the wrapping, the knots, the markings. "German text here. Says, handle with extreme care. Valuable contents." "Valuable how?" "That's what we're here to determine." Morrison turned to his team. "Collins, check for explosive residue. Martinez, scan for radiation. We rule out weapons first." The specialist worked methodically. Electronic equipment, chemical sensors, careful measurements. After 30 minutes, Collins reported, "No explosives, no radiation, no chemical weapons signatures." "Then what is it?" David asked. "Only one way to find out." Morrison selected a medium-sized sack from an accessible stack. "We open this one, carefully. Everyone back except Chen and Collins." David and the specialist approached the sack. Collins cut the rope binding carefully. The outer burlap fell away, revealing another layer of cloth. Beneath that, oiled paper. Beneath that, more protective wrapping. "Someone packaged this very carefully," Collins observed. "Multiple protective layers. This isn't standard military procedure." They continued unwrapping. 6 layers total. Finally, the innermost wrapping fell away, revealing... David's breath caught. It wasn't weapons, wasn't supplies, wasn't anything he'd expected. But Morrison's reaction was more telling. The captain's face went white. His hands started shaking. "Dear God," Morrison whispered. "I need to make a phone call right now." "Sir, what is it?" "Something that changes everything." "Collins, rewrap this immediately. No one touches anything else. Chen, post guards. No one enters or exits without my authorization." "Captain, I need to know what we found." Morrison looked at him with something like fear. "You found something the Nazis were desperate to hide, something worth more than weapons or gold, something that could start international incidents if this gets out wrong." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you get until I clear this with command. What's in these sacks?" Morrison gestured at the thousands of packages. "This could be the most significant non-military discovery of the entire war. But it's also politically explosive. We need experts, real experts, art historians, cultural specialists, legal advisors." "Art historians," David repeated. "What does art have to do with—" He stopped. Understanding dawned. "Is this looted art, like the rumors about Nazis stealing paintings?" Morrison's silence was answer enough. "How much are we talking about?" David pressed. "If my suspicion is correct, if even half these sacks contain what I think they contain, we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars, possibly billions." The magnitude was incomprehensible. "But it's not about money," Morrison continued. "It's about culture, identity, heritage. If the Nazis systematically looted on this scale, if they stole this much from this many people..." His voice hardened. "This is evidence of cultural genocide, and that evidence is now in American custody, which means we're responsible for handling it correctly." Over the next 2 days, more specialists arrived. But they didn't open more sacks, not yet. First came endless documentation. Photographs, measurements, inventory counts, security protocols. The frustration was maddening. David wanted answers. His unit wanted to know what they'd found, but the specialists insisted on procedure. "Why can't we just open them and see?" Williams complained. "Because each sack could be evidence in war crimes trials," one specialist explained. "Opening them wrong, documenting them incorrectly, handling them improperly, any of that could compromise legal cases. We do this right, or we don't do it at all." On the 3rd day, a new team arrived, led by a German man in his 60s who introduced himself simply as Dr. Weber. "I need to see what you found," he said in accented English. They showed him the warehouse. Dr. Weber walked through slowly, examining sacks, reading German markings, his face growing increasingly emotional. "The dates," he said. the inventory codes, the careful wrapping. His voice broke. This is exactly what I feared, what we all feared. What is it? David demanded. Doctor. Weber turned, tears streaming down his face. This is theft on an unimaginable scale. This is the attempted murder of culture itself. And gentlemen, he gestured at the thousands of sacks. What's in here doesn't belong to Germany. It doesn't belong to America. It belongs to families, to communities, to people who are probably dead now, murdered by the same regime that stole this. Stole what exactly? Dr. Weber looked at Morrison. May I show them? Morrison nodded. Dr. Weber selected another sack, unwrapped it carefully, and finally, the full contents were revealed. But David was ordered not to discuss it. Not yet. Not until official authorization. The mystery had been answered, but the real story, the real horror, was just beginning. And it would shake the world. Day 4. The warehouse had become a military operation. Guards posted, perimeter secured. No one allowed inside without clearance. Dr. Weber and his team worked methodically, but they'd only opened 3 sacks. 3 out of thousands. The secrecy was maddening. Why won't they tell us what's inside? Jackson complained. We found it. We deserve to know. On need-to-know basis, David replied, though he was equally frustrated. Whatever this is, it's bigger than us. He'd seen the contents of that second sack, seen Dr. Weber's reaction, Morrison's shock. But orders were absolute. Don't discuss specifics until official authorization. What David did know, it wasn't weapons, wasn't supplies, was something the Nazis had hidden desperately. Something wrapped in 6 protective layers, something that made grown men cry. On day 5, more personnel arrived, not just military, civilians, men in suits carrying briefcases, government officials. Someone mentioned the State Department. This is escalating, Williams observed. Whatever's in those sacks, it's diplomatic now. David was called to a briefing. Captain Morrison, Dr. Weber, and 3 men in civilian clothes sat around a makeshift table. Lieutenant Chen, you discovered this warehouse, one civilian began. We need your discretion. What you found here, it's unprecedented, but if handled incorrectly, it could cause international incidents. I don't understand, it's just... David caught himself. He didn't actually know what it was. Only hints, implications. The contents of this warehouse were stolen, Dr. Weber explained carefully. Stolen from people across Europe, from families, from institutions, from communities. Some of those people are dead now. Some survived. All of them, if they knew this existed, would have legal claims. Claims to what? To property that rightfully belongs to them. Property the Nazis took illegally. Property worth, Dr. Weber paused, worth more than I can calculate. Monetarily, culturally, historically. So we return it. That's simple. Nothing about this is simple, one civilian interjected. Many original owners are dead. Their families are scattered. Some countries no longer exist in the same form. Borders have changed. Governments have changed. Who do we return items to when the original owner, their family, and their entire community were murdered? The magnitude hit David. This wasn't just stolen property. This was evidence of something darker, systematic theft accompanying systematic murder. How many items are we talking about? We estimate between 15 and 25,000 individual items, Dr. Weber said quietly, based on preliminary analysis of sack sizes and contents, each requiring authentication, provenance research, ownership determination. That could take years. Decades, more likely. This is the largest recovery operation in history. We're creating protocols as we go because nothing like this has ever happened before. Over the following week, the team opened 20 sacks. Just 20. Each revealing contents that required extensive documentation. David still wasn't allowed to know specific details, but he observed the process. Specialists photographed everything. Documented wrapping techniques, recorded inventory numbers written on some sacks, took samples for dating and authentication. The painstaking care made sense now. This was evidence for future legal battles. "How long until we know the full scope?" David asked Dr. Weber during a break. "Months, maybe a year. We can't rush this. Every sack tells a story. Every item represents a person, a family, a loss. We owe them accuracy. But the war's over. Why does this matter so much now?" Dr. Weber looked at him with infinite sadness. "Because, Lieutenant, the Nazis tried to erase certain people from existence, tried to make it as if they'd never lived. What's in this warehouse? It's proof those people existed. Proof they had culture, wealth, beauty, history. Destroying that evidence would complete what the Nazis started. We can't allow that." The words haunted David. This warehouse wasn't just about stolen objects. It was about stolen memory, and returning it meant fighting to prove that vanished people had mattered, that their existence wasn't erased, that genocide didn't win completely. The mystery remained. What specifically was in those sacks? But David was beginning to understand why the answer mattered so profoundly, and why the world would soon be shocked. Week 3. The operation had grown massive. 30 specialists working around the clock, military guards, documentation teams. The warehouse buzzed with controlled urgency. David's unit was reassigned to other duties, but he requested permission to stay. Morrison approved. "You found this. You should see it through, but Chen, when this goes public, you'll be in the spotlight. Press will want interviews. Are you ready for that?" "I just want to understand what we found." "You will, soon. We're preparing an official announcement. Once we have enough documentation to support our claims, this goes public." The announcement came on day 25. A press conference in Munich, military officials, government representatives, and Dr. Weber standing before microphones. "We've discovered a Nazi warehouse containing thousands of items stolen during the war," the official statement began. "The contents represent systematic looting on an unprecedented scale. We're working to identify and return these items to rightful owners." The press erupted with questions. What kind of items? Cultural property. "We'll release specific details as authentication completes." "How much is it worth?" "Monetarily, hundreds of millions of dollars. Culturally, incalculable." "Who did it belong to?" "Victims of Nazi persecution. Jewish families primarily, but also museums, churches, private collectors across occupied Europe. We're still determining specific ownership." The vague answers frustrated reporters, but the military held firm. No details until proper documentation existed. David watched from the back of the room. The announcement was carefully crafted, revealing enough to explain the discovery's significance without providing specifics that could compromise legal cases. But the press wasn't satisfied. Within days, rumors spread. Newspapers speculated wildly. "Nazi gold found in Munich warehouse. Stolen jewelry worth billions. Hidden Nazi treasure discovered." All wrong, all missing the actual story, but the truth remained classified. David received his first interview request on day 30. A reporter from the New York Times wanted to speak with the soldier who found the warehouse. Morrison advised him carefully, "You can do the interview, but stick to facts. Don't speculate about contents. Don't discuss specific items. Talk about the discovery process only." The interview was awkward. The reporter pressed for details David couldn't provide. "What's really in there, Lieutenant?" "I can't discuss specifics. It's part of an ongoing investigation." "But you've seen inside the sacks." "Some of them, yes." And it's significant." "That's all I can say." "Significant how?" "You'll have to wait for official reports." Frustrated, the reporter tried another angle. "How did you feel when you first opened the sacks?" David considered carefully. "Confused, then shocked, then—" He paused, "then sad, because whatever was in those sacks, it had been stolen from someone. Someone who likely died never knowing what happened to their property. That's the real story. Not the objects themselves, but the people they were taken from. That quote made headlines. Soldier mourns stolen property victims. It shifted the narrative slightly. Less treasure hunt, more tragedy, but still the public demanded details. On day 40, Dr. Weber gave David permission to see the documentation room, where authenticated items were catalogued and photographed. What David saw took his breath away. Items laid carefully on tables, each with documentation cards, each representing a story of theft and loss. Now you understand, Dr. Weber said quietly. Now you see why we've been so careful. How much have you authenticated? 200 items so far. We've opened maybe 300 sacks total. We have thousands more to process. Years of work. Yes, but necessary work. Each item deserves proper handling. Each represents a person who deserves justice. David walked through the documentation room, seeing item after item. The variety was staggering. The provenance research, tracing where each came from, was incredibly detailed. This one, Dr. Weber pointed to documentation, stolen from a family in Amsterdam, 1942. Family name Cohen. All 6 family members died in concentration camps. No surviving relatives we can locate. So, who gets it? That's the question we're grappling with. If no heirs exist, does it go to a museum? To the Dutch government? To a Jewish cultural organization? There's no precedent for this. Similar dilemmas multiplied with each authenticated item. The legal and ethical complications were overwhelming. When does the public learn specifics? David asked. Soon. We're preparing a comprehensive report. Once we have enough items authenticated to demonstrate the scope, we'll release details. The world needs to know the full story. Will they believe it? They'll have to. We have evidence, documentation, the items themselves. This isn't speculation. It's documented fact. Dr. Weber's face was grim. And when they learn the truth, Lieutenant, the world will be shocked. Because this isn't just theft. It's attempted cultural genocide. And we've just found the evidence. David left the documentation room with his head spinning. Soon the mystery would be revealed. Soon everyone would know what those sacks contained. And soon the world would understand the full horror of what the Nazis had tried to do. The countdown had begun. Week 8. Dr. Weber called David to the warehouse. We're ready to reveal everything. Tomorrow, we're releasing the full report. I wanted you to see the complete picture first. You found this. You deserve to understand before the world does. They walked through the now organized warehouse. Opened sacks were sorted by category. Documentation covered every wall. The transformation was remarkable. We've authenticated 847 items so far, Dr. Weber began, from 200 open sacks. The rest contained multiple smaller items. Based on this ratio, we estimate the warehouse contains approximately 22,000 individual items. David's breath caught. 22,000? Yes, and here's what they are. Dr. Weber led him through the organized sections, finally explaining everything. Paintings, sculptures, rare manuscripts, religious artifacts, jewelry, ceremonial objects, musical instruments, rare books, tapestries, furniture, everything of cultural value the Nazis could steal. He showed David examples. Paintings by masters David recognized even with limited art knowledge. Sculptures that belonged in museums. Jewish religious items, Torah scrolls, menorahs, prayer books, stolen from destroyed synagogues. This isn't random looting, Dr. Weber explained. This is systematic cultural theft. The Nazis targeted specific communities, primarily Jewish, and took everything of value. Art to fill their museums, religious items to destroy or melt down, personal possessions to erase identity. Why here? Why this warehouse? We believe this was a collection point. Items stolen from across Europe were brought here for sorting. Some would go to Nazi museums, some to private collectors, some would be destroyed. The war ended before they could complete the distribution. David touched a prayer book carefully. Someone prayed with this. Yes, someone who likely died in a concentration camp, never knowing what happened to their belongings, never knowing their cultural heritage was being systematically erased. The enormity was crushing. This wasn't just theft, it was attempted cultural genocide. What happens now? Tomorrow, we announce everything, full details. We'll show photographs, explain the scope, begin the process of returning items to families, countries, institutions. It'll take decades, but it starts tomorrow. How will people react? Shock, horror, anger, but also hope. Because this proves that some things weren't completely destroyed. Some pieces of culture survived, and we're going to return them. That night, David couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the families who'd owned these items, the communities destroyed, the culture systematically stolen. Tomorrow, the world would learn the truth. Tomorrow, the mystery ended. Tomorrow, everything changed. The next morning, Dr. Weber held a press conference. Full details, photographs displayed, the complete story revealed. The Munich warehouse contains approximately 22,000 items of cultural property stolen by the Nazis, he announced. Paintings by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Monet, Van Gogh, Michelangelo, religious artifacts from destroyed synagogues, personal items from murdered families. Musical instruments, manuscripts, the systematic theft of Jewish and European culture on an unprecedented scale. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. How much is it worth? Over $300 million. But the cultural value is beyond calculation. Who did it belong to? Thousands of families, most murdered in the Holocaust. We're beginning the process of identification and return. How long will that take? Decades, but we're committed to returning every item we can to rightful owners. The press conference made global headlines. Nazis stole 22,000 cultural treasures. Largest art theft in history discovered. American soldiers find evidence of cultural genocide. David was interviewed dozens of times. He told the story of finding the warehouse, of the mysterious sacks, of slowly understanding what they'd discovered. We thought it might be weapons, he told reporters. We never imagined it was stolen culture, stolen memory, stolen identity. Public reaction was intense, shock at the scale, horror at the systematic nature, but also demands for justice. Survivors began coming forward. My family had a painting, stolen in 1940. Could it be there? Families with old photographs. This was my grandmother's menorah, taken when they destroyed our synagogue. Museums. We lost masterpieces. Are any in that warehouse? The verification process began, painstaking, careful, requiring proof, but slowly items began finding their way home. The first major return. A Vermeer, stolen from the Rothschild collection, returned to the surviving family member with international press coverage. Proof the process worked. But most cases were harder. Families dead, records destroyed, ownership impossible to prove. This will haunt us for generations, Dr. Weber told David. We'll never return everything, never fully correct this crime, but we're trying. That has to count for something. David nodded. You gave them back their memory. That's not nothing. No, it's not nothing. The mystery was solved, the horror revealed, and now came the hard part, trying to repair what the Nazis had shattered. One returned item at a time, this story is just reaching its most emotional phase. If you want to see how decades of work returned stolen culture to families, how some items found homes while others remained orphaned, and how one discovery changed international law forever, make sure you're subscribed. The journey from discovery to justice spans 80 years, and it's not over yet. 1950, 5 years after discovery. David Chen had left the military but couldn't leave the mission. He worked with Dr. Weber's team, dedicating his life to returning stolen items. We've returned 6,000 pieces, Dr. Weber reported, but 16,000 remain. Many will never find their original families. The work was exhausting. Each item required research. Where stolen, from whom, were heirs alive. Most original owners were dead. Many families were completely gone. This Chagall was stolen from Warsaw, 1942, David explained to colleagues. Owner, Goldstein family. We have no first names, no address, no surviving relatives located. The entire neighborhood's Jewish population was murdered. So what happens to it? It stays in storage until we find someone, or forever. But successes happen too. A woman named Rachel Stein contacted them about a family painting. My father owned a small Chagall, bought in 1928 Berlin. The Nazis took it in 1939. I survived Dachau. My family didn't. If that painting exists, David searched records. Item 4783. A Chagall from Berlin, 1939. Owner, S. Stein. Describe it. Rachel did, perfectly down to every detail. It's yours. We'll process paperwork immediately. Rachel wept. They're not completely erased. This painting proves they existed. They mattered. Moments like that made the work meaningful, but they were rare. Most items remained unclaimed, families entirely murdered, no heirs, no one to return them to. What do we do with orphaned artwork? Government officials asked. We can't store it forever. We memorialize it, Dr. Weber insisted. Display it in museums with full provenance. Explain who owned it, how it was stolen. Make the art tell the victims' stories. The compromise. Museums could display unclaimed items temporarily, always with plaques explaining their history and inviting heirs to come forward. Some families found their belongings through these exhibits. A man saw his grandmother's menorah in a New York museum, proved ownership through old photographs, reclaimed it after 15 years. By 1960, the warehouse was empty, items either returned or in museums worldwide. But the work continued. New claims emerged constantly, requiring investigation and verification. David became an expert in Nazi art theft, consulting on cases globally. The Munich warehouse had been the largest discovery, but hardly the only one. Thousands of smaller hoards appeared across Europe. This will never end, he told Dr. Weber in 1965. We're still finding stuff 20 years later. And we'll find more in 50 years. The Nazis hid things everywhere. We'll be discovering their crimes for generations. Dr. Weber was right. The work continued. Barleyson, 1975, 30 years post-discovery. David, now 65, attended an international conference on cultural property rights. The Munich warehouse had established precedents now codified in law. Your discovery changed everything, a young researcher told him. Before 1945, stolen art was just theft. After Munich, the world recognized cultural genocide. That items belong to communities, not just individuals. That memory has value beyond money. International laws now mandated provenance research. Museums had to verify ownership history. Auction houses couldn't sell items with suspicious origins. The art world had been forced to confront complicity, but problems remained. Many institutions had purchased Nazi-looted art in good faith. Who had rights, original owners' heirs, or current innocent possessors? Courts struggled with answers. We're still fighting your cases, lawyers told David. Items from Munich warehouse still in litigation 50 years later. One notorious example, a Klimt painting, stolen in 1938, returned to Austria in 1948, hung in National Museum for decades. Then in 1998, the original owner's niece sued for return. Legal battle lasted 6 years. She won. Justice delayed but not denied, David commented when the case concluded. Rachel Stein, now 90, had become an advocate. We can't let time erase crimes, she told media. My family's Chagall was returned in 1950. That changed my life. Other families deserve the same chance even 70 years later. Her advocacy influenced policy. No statute of limitations on Nazi theft claims. Families could pursue recovery indefinitely. By 1995, 50 years after discovery, approximately 60% of Munich warehouse items had been returned or definitively placed. The remaining 40% were in museums, properly documented, waiting for heirs who might never appear. Some will never go home, Dr. Weber admitted before his death in 1996. Entire families gone, but we preserved them. That's something. David attended Dr. Weber's funeral. Hundreds came, art historians, museum directors, recovered property owners, Holocaust survivors. All mourning the man who'd spent 50 years fighting to return what Nazis stole. He gave us back our history, one survivor said, our culture, our proof that we existed. That's immortal work. David retired in 2000 at age 90. His final interview summarized everything. Did we succeed? We retrieved what we could, returned what we could, preserved what couldn't be returned. Perfect justice was impossible, but we tried. That matters. What's your legacy? Proof that memory matters, that one discovery can change how the world thinks about culture, theft, justice. We found 22,000 items in burlap sacks. We gave thousands back their stolen heritage. That's enough. It was. 2010, 65 years after discovery. New technology revolutionized the work. Databases connected globally, DNA testing identified heirs, digitization made records accessible worldwide. A museum in Austria used facial recognition software on a painting's provenance photos, matched faces to Holocaust memorial databases, located a surviving great-granddaughter in Argentina. She'd never known her family owned art. Painting returned after 65 years. Technology is solving cases we thought unsolvable, researchers marveled. But complications persisted. A Monet from Munich warehouse, supposedly returned to France in 1947, surfaced in a private New York collection in 2008. Investigation revealed the 1947 return was fraudulent. A corrupt official kept the original, sent a forgery. 70 years of compounding fraud. The theft continues, prosecutors warned. Vigilance can never end. Social media changed everything. Survivors and descendants connected globally. A Facebook group searching for Nazi-stolen family items had 50,000 members sharing photos, memories, research. One woman posted a childhood memory. My grandmother had a silver menorah, 7 branches. Inscription in Hebrew. Nazis took it in 1941. Krakow. Does anyone know if it survived? 3 hours later, a museum curator responded, we have that menorah. Munich warehouse, item number 8234. Been in storage since 1948, awaiting claimant. Can you prove ownership? She could. Family photos, documentation, DNA connection to listed owner. Menorah returned in 2011, 70 years after theft. Thousands of similar stories. Social media connected families to stolen items in ways impossible before. The work accelerated. By 2020, approximately 75% of Munich items had been definitively placed. But that last 25%, roughly 5,500 items, remained problematic. Ownership too unclear, families too lost, records too incomplete. What do we do with permanent orphans? Museums asked. The answer, permanent memorialization. Items displayed with full histories, QR codes linking to research, invitations for heirs to claim, but acceptance that some might never find homes. We've done everything humanly possible, curators explained. These items honor the dead by remembering them. That's their purpose now. Rachel Stein's great-granddaughter, now a cultural property lawyer, agreed. My great-grandmother got her Chagall back. She died happy knowing her family wasn't erased. These orphaned items, they're proof the Nazis failed. Culture survived, memory survived. That's victory. David Chen died in 2016 at 106. His funeral was attended by hundreds. Descendants of returned item families, researchers who'd built careers on his discovery, museum directors whose collections existed because of his find. He stumbled on a warehouse. His obituary read, he spent 70 years ensuring what he found was handled with dignity, justice, and respect. 22,000 items, thousands returned, thousands preserved. One man's commitment to memory. The work continued without him, because the mission was bigger than any individual. 2025, 80 years after discovery. An international symposium marked the anniversary. Researchers presented papers, museums shared success stories, families testified about recovered items, statistics were presented. Of 22,000 original items, 68% returned to families, countries, 22% in museums with documented histories, 10% still in research-dark storage, approximately 100,000 Nazi-looted items still missing globally, 500-plus active legal cases regarding ownership disputes, new claims filed monthly as descendants discover family histories. The work will never truly end, the keynote speaker stated. Every generation discovers new information. Technology improves, records surface. The fight for cultural justice is perpetual. One presentation focused on success. A Rembrandt from Munich warehouse, unclaimed for 70 years, was matched to a Dutch family in 2023 using AI analysis of historical records. Painting returned to great-great-grandchildren who'd never known it existed. Technology makes the impossible possible, researchers explained. We're solving 80-year-old mysteries with 21st-century tools. But ethical questions remained. A panel debated, should museums keep unclaimed items indefinitely? Or after a century, should they become public property? Survivors' advocates argued passionately, no time limit on justice. These items were stolen. They remain stolen until rightfully returned. 100 years doesn't change that. Museum directors countered, we're preserving these items. Displaying them educates about the Holocaust. Hiding them in storage serves no one. The debate continues. No easy answers exist. Rachel Stein's great-great-granddaughter attended the symposium. At age 30, she'd grown up with her family's recovered Chagall hanging in their home. That painting shaped my identity, she told the audience. It's proof my ancestors existed. Proof they had culture, wealth, beauty. The Nazis tried to erase them. Mr. Chen's discovery proved they failed. That matters more than the painting's monetary value. It's proof of survival. The symposium concluded with a moment of silence for David Chen, Dr. Weber, Rachel Stein, and all who dedicated lives to returning stolen culture. Then came a surprise announcement. We've just authenticated a new cache, an official revealed, found in a sealed basement in Berlin. 300 more items, probably connected to Munich warehouse distribution network. The discoveries continue. 80 years later, still finding Nazi hoards, still returning stolen property, still fighting cultural genocide's legacy. This never ends, one researcher said. My grandchildren will probably still be working these cases. Good, a survivor's descendant replied. That means we're remembering. That means the victims aren't forgotten. That means the Nazis didn't win. The work continues. The vigilance persists. The memory endures, because that's what David Chen proved when he cut a padlock and found mysterious burlap sacks. That one discovery could start a movement, that justice doesn't expire, that culture matters, and that the fight to preserve memory is worth waging. Forever. Done. The Munich warehouse no longer exists, demolished in 2018 for development, but a memorial stands, a bronze sculpture of burlap sacks commemorating what was found there. The inscription reads, "Here stood a warehouse containing 22,000 stolen cultural items, evidence of Nazi systematic theft, proof that genocide targeted not just lives, but memory. Discovered May 1945 by American soldiers, returned to rightful owners through decades of dedication. May we never forget." Visitors come daily, Holocaust survivors, art historians, descendants of victims, tourists learning history, all standing where David Chen once stood, contemplating what the discovery meant. In 2025, a documentary aired, The Warehouse, how burlap sacks revealed cultural genocide. It traced the complete story: discovery, authentication, decades of returns, ongoing work. Interviewed was a 95-year-old woman whose grandmother's silver menorah was returned in 2011. "I light it every Friday," she said, tears streaming. "Every week I remember that my family wasn't erased. The Nazis tried, but they failed. This menorah proves they failed." The documentary became required viewing in schools globally, teaching that the Holocaust wasn't just murder, it was attempted erasure, and that resistance means preserving memory, culture, identity. David Chen's granddaughter appeared in the film. "My grandfather stumbled on something extraordinary, but he didn't just find stolen art. He found evidence that humanity's worst impulses can be countered by our best ones. The Nazis stole systematically. Grandpa returned systematically. Evil organized. Good organized better." The film ended with current statistics. Of Munich's 22,000 items, 70% definitively returned or placed. The remaining 30%, roughly 6,600 items, still in process. Some will likely never find original families. But all are preserved, documented, memorialized. "We succeeded imperfectly," one researcher concluded. "Perfect justice was impossible, but we tried, we're still trying." That's David Chen's legacy, not perfection, persistence. Museums worldwide now display items with full provenance. QR codes let visitors research complete histories. One museum's plaque reads, "This Monet was stolen from the Goldstein family, Paris, 1940. Family murdered at Auschwitz. No surviving heirs located. This painting honors their memory." Visitors weep reading such plaques. The art becomes memorial. The beauty honors the dead. In 2024, a surprising discovery. A storage facility in Munich contained documents from the original warehouse, inventory lists, theft records, Nazi correspondence, more evidence, more research opportunities, more families potentially located. 80 years later, still discovering. Researchers marveled. This story truly never ends. And it shouldn't, because ending means forgetting. Forgetting means the Nazis partially win. David Chen understood that. When he found mysterious burlap sacks in 1945, he could have walked away, let someone else handle it, avoided the complications. Instead, he spent 70 years ensuring stolen culture returned home, ensuring victims were honored, ensuring memory survived. That's heroism, not battlefield courage, but persistent, quiet, decades-long dedication to justice. The warehouse is gone, the items are returned or preserved, but the mission continues. New generations take up the work, using new tools, finding new connections, solving old mysteries, because David Chen proved something crucial. Individual actions matter. One warehouse, one discovery, one man's refusal to forget, changed how the world thinks about culture, theft, memory, justice. That's legacy. That's immortality. That's proof that even in darkness, humanity can choose remembrance over erasure, light over shadow, memory over forgetting, always.